Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Divorced Woman's Guide podcast. I am really excited for you guys to be tuning in today because I am here with my friend, Stacy Francis. Hello, Stacy. How are you?
Hello, Wendy, and hello, everyone listening.
So excited that you are here because we are going to talk about what everybody listening needs to know about your finances before, during, and after your divorce. Now, before we dive into our conversation, I'm going to share a little bit about you, Stacy, with our audience. So Stacy is the president and CEO of Francis Financial, a fee-only boutique wealth management, financial planning, and divorce financial planning firm dedicated to providing ongoing comprehensive advice for successful individuals, couples, and women in transition, such as divorce or widowhood. She is a certified financial planner as well as a certified divorce financial analyst with over 20 years of experience in the financial industry. Stacy is also the founder of Savvy Ladies, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to educating and empowering women to take control of their finances. Stacy is a nationally recognized financial expert featured on CNBC's Digital Financial Advisor Council, the Forbes Finance Council, Kiplinger, and the Wall Street Journal. Stacy is also the host of Financially Ever After, which is a podcast focusing on women, money, and divorce. She is also an author of the white paper Unveiling the Unspoken Truth: The Financial Challenges Women Face During and After Divorce. So Stacy, you clearly have quite the resume to be doing the type of work that you are doing, but I would love for you to share what I love to hear you talk about, which is your story and what really inspired you to do what it is that you're doing today.
No, I appreciate that. And thank you very much, Wendy, for being here. I adore talking to women, making sure that they're financially secure. And I know that's what you're all about.
Yes.
But I will tell you, I never expected to become a financial advisor, nor did I ever even imagine that I would become a divorce financial analyst. That's not typically a profession or an occupation as a little girl that you dream of. Yeah, you dream of in a way. But I watched one of the most important people in my life, my grandmother, stay in an abusive marriage. And she shared it was because she felt trapped. She felt financially trapped. And that was a wake-up call to me that money is very important. And it's not necessarily important to be able to have a Gucci bag. It's important because it gives us safety, it gives us opportunities, it gives us a secure financial future. And particularly for women, that is so important for us. And it impacts so many of the decisions where we make, where we end up living. Sometimes even who we marry can impact whether or not we feel comfortable and moving forward with a divorce, where our children go to school. There are just so many pieces other than the very materialistic things that we think about of which handbag is on our arm. And that's what I've dedicated my life to, is really helping women live their very best life. And we know that part of that very best life is having financial security. And we all deserve that. And so that's what I'm going to be talking about today. And I'm so excited that we're talking about financial security and what you need to think about before divorce, going through, and after, because it's one of the times in your life where you're going to be making decisions that not only impact you now, but really impact you for the rest of your life.
Yeah. And you and I have talked about this before, and my audience who's listening also knows this to be true. It was one of the scariest pieces of my divorce process. It was something that I avoided as long as I could because it scared me. It scared me because I didn't necessarily, I thought I knew everything, and it turned out that I didn't. And it was intimidating for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of my big passions is to provide my audience with the resources so that they feel empowered as they are going through this process. But as it begins before you really are walking into this new road of divorce. So what is the first thing that women should do financially once in her mind she has decided that divorce is imminent?
Yeah. And even if she's just thinking about
Yeah.
divorce, and that is getting your handle on the finances. And each of your listeners most likely has a different level of involvement in the finances, but most are not 100% in control or knowledgeable of every single piece. So if you're one of those individuals, there's a great opportunity for you before you start the divorce process or as you start the divorce process to really get your hands around that. If you have been in charge of the bill paying, that may be something that's more comfortable for you. But often, even if we are in charge of the bill paying, we don't know what all those numbers actually add up to, often because it can be frightening. And I went through this process last year as COVID hit. I really wanted to see what is my normal spending going to look like in COVID versus my past spending. And I walked the talk and I added up every dollar, every quarter, every dime, nickel, and penny that was spent. And I will tell you that that number frightened me. The amount that I was spending on eating out, on clothing, taxis, Ubers, all those things. But it is imperative that we know that. And it doesn't mean that it's good or bad. That's not what we're talking about. It's not whether it's good or bad. It's just you need to know what it takes spending wise to actually run your life. And if you have children, run your children's life too. So that's one of the most important things. And it, like you said, Wendy, it can be overwhelming. It's a big project. Big project.
It is. And I remember the day that I had to put that spreadsheet together for myself as I worked full time, as did my now ex-husband. And even just looking at what our monthly expenses were was terrifying. And I had no idea. I had a rough idea, but I didn't have that clear of an idea of how much money I was spending a month, how much money it took to have my life.
Yeah.
And I think one of the other eye opening experiences for me as well was also understanding like where I thought I knew how much I was spending like on groceries, for example. And then coming to realize I get to be more efficient with my grocery bills and meal plan and do all these things. And while it's scary, it was so incredibly eye opening and empowering at the same time because I looked at it and I was like, oh my God, I gotta fix this. Like I gotta work
Yeah.
on these numbers. And so then it became almost like a project for me, which I love spreadsheets. I'm a spreadsheet geek. So like I enjoyed that process, but it was a matter of you have to get over the hurdle to get to
Yeah.
that place.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I think what it also taught me was that there were just things I didn't know and also mistakes that I was making that I wasn't aware of. I'd love for you to enlighten the audience as well on what are some of the common mistakes that you
Yeah.
see women make, not just as they are going through their finances, but also as they're looking at what their, what I call the business side of the divorce is, the financial
Yeah.
piece. Sometimes people want to keep the house and sometimes that's not in their best interest. So I'd love for you to talk more about those mistakes that you typically see women make when they're going through their
Yep.
financial aspect of the divorce.
There are a lot of mistakes, but the good news is that today we're going to be talking about them so that you don't have to step in the puddle and get your feet wet. We can step around the puddle.
Yes.
And the first is what you talked about, really getting smart and clear on your spending. And it's not just getting a piece of paper and writing it down, it's doing exactly what you did, Wendy. It's maybe opening a mint.com account that will download 3 to 6 months of your spending from your credit cards, your bank accounts, and then you can categorize. Or you can go to your credit card, end of the year statements, you can download those into Excel and start to categorize. But you want to do that versus trying to create these budgets from the air of, I think I spend this, I think I spend that, because I can guarantee you're going to be wrong. So actually getting the hardcore data, really important for the spending. The second piece that I see is not looking at all of the assets and liabilities. You need to look at that entire financial landscape of what you own and what you owe. And so that includes the value of your house and the current mortgage, what might be in a 401k at your account, at your employer or your spouse's, what's in IRAs, brokerage accounts, if there's a 529 college savings plan for the kids, what you have in life insurance, what you don't have in life insurance. And then the more painful part of the balance sheet, what we call the liabilities. So do you owe any car loans, any student loans? What are your current credit cards? And what does that mortgage or home equity line of look like? An easy way to get your hands around that is to order a recent credit report. You can go to annualcreditreport.com. It's free. It does not hurt your credit to pull these, and you can pull your credit without your partner even knowing. You cannot pull their credit, but you can pull your own. And so that's going to be helpful because it's going to start to really fill in the blanks of what debts you may owe. So once you understand the assets and you understand the liabilities, making sure that you look at the entire picture and not try to decide certain financial issues one at a time. And Wendy, you alluded to that mistake of keeping the house when you really maybe shouldn't be keeping the house. And that's a situation where sometimes we'll let our emotion run the game. And also when we're just looking at that asset and we're not looking at the entire picture, that sometimes can tell us that actually we can't afford it. And so those again are those three things of number one, starting from your real spending. Don't start from a blank piece of paper, but actually download into Excel or use mint.com for the actual spending. Number two, getting a picture and knowing exactly what all your assets are and liabilities. And number three, not making a decision about a certain asset one at a time, looking at the entire financial picture. And I even liken it to an orchestra. You have different sections of the orchestra and it makes beautiful music working together. You don't go to the orchestra to just hear, for example, percussion. You would probably ask for a refund. And nor should you have that same experience when you're thinking about your divorce. It is an entire orchestra of assets and they need to work together to support you.
Yeah, and you're bringing up something that's also coming up for me is it also one of the things that I think people make a mistake also on the financial piece is not consulting with a financial expert, because many times our spouses, they'll say, well, I'll take the savings account and you take the IRA, and there's tax implications associated with one versus the other. And one of the things that I was really, you know what you don't know. And to have somebody in your corner like you, having a CDFA, having a financial planner there to consult with you in terms of what is in your best interest. Do you see that a lot where women are agreeing to a higher dollar amount in one account, but then they don't think about the tax implications, so it winds up actually being less?
I do see that. And I tell anyone that there are, three pillars to divorce. And those three pillars are the legal, the financial, and the emotional mental health support. And you have to have all three. And without three, the stool falls over.
Yeah.
And so that means that you need to have a great lawyer that knows the law and will advocate for you. You need to have a financial advisor that will help you understand the tax ramifications, the growth of each asset, and what type of settlement you can afford to take. And number three, the mental health, where you come in place. And it's really important also that you have these three great professionals working together so that you get the best experience. We have seen over and over again where someone will look at $100,000 that's in an IRA, $100,000 that might be in a checking account, and she takes the IRA and tells him, you go ahead and take the checking account. The problem is that every dollar that comes out of that IRA, she has to pay taxes, ordinary income taxes, like it came to you in your paycheck. And so that IRA most likely is only worth $60,000, and her husband is walking away with a $100,000 asset. So while we don't like to think about taxes in divorce, we have to think about taxes, and every asset, the house, every single different taxable brokerage account, your 401k, your IRA, your Roth IRA, your cash value of life insurance, your CDs, every single asset you have has a different tax DNA.
Yep.
Like we all have different DNA. And so you have to understand it because it's different for every single one.
Yeah. And
Really important.
it is. And it's something I didn't understand. And it's something that I always, I know I'm not a financial expert by any means, but I know that much where I will always tell them, you've got to have somebody in your corner who can explain all of this stuff to you because it may not be as great of a deal as you think. And I think part of what I also see a lot is that women tend to trust their soon to be ex-spouse that, oh, they want my best interest in mind. And I'm not here to say that they don't, but I am here to say that you get to stand in your power to ensure that is the case. And by doing so, you consult with a third party who has no vested interest in the financial outcome. They have a vested interest in your security as you move forward. Because what I also see is that so many women are terrified about their life after divorce. Am I going to be able to afford my life? Am I going to be able to get back to the place where we were as a couple? So, what are some steps that women can take to ensure that from a financial security and stability place that they will get there? What are some steps they take to rebuild?
Yeah, so you hit the nail on the head. Women are worried. And there was a study that just came out by APA. 8 out of 10 women say that they're nervous and anxious about their money situation. So it is something that we worry about. And the most important thing you can do is to hire that right professional and have a roadmap that maps out until you're age 95 that tells you, based on this nest egg that you are receiving, what income do you need to earn if you need to go back to work or if you are currently working? What expenses can you afford? We find that women take much longer to recover from a divorce, and a third never financially recover. And so, knowing that we do have some headwinds against us, especially if we have gone through the divorce process. And what it means is that we have to be that much more serious, committed, and focused on making really good financial decisions. And the biggest piece that it comes back to is educating yourself. So that number one, through the divorce process, you're picking the right assets, you're advocating for the appropriate child support and spousal support if you are eligible, and you're prepared to live your life in a very financially sound way, knowing that you're making good decisions, not only for today, but for the long term. And I think about it like going to the gym, and many of us have not been to the gym for a long time because of COVID. But I find when I work out after a hiatus, it's a little painful in the beginning. And I can't run as fast, I can't run as long. But eventually, the more I do it, the more comfortable I get and the stronger I get. And this is just a muscle too. It's your financial muscle. And for many of us, we haven't really used it that much.
Right.
But know that we as women are just as capable as men. In fact, there are many studies that have shown that long term, women actually outperform men when it comes to investing. And AICPA did a survey and found that women actually improve their spending habits much more so than our male counterparts after divorce. So we've got all of the skills in us to do this, but often we just maybe haven't had as much experience as we wish we had with investing, as well as the budgeting and long-term planning.
Yeah, that's so interesting because I think that it's funny because when I think about my life today versus where I was, I have such a clearer picture of not only what I am spending, but what I'm living into and what I'm creating to ensure that my boys and I are in a place where, where I feel secure. And part of that is also looking at my alimony. I do still get alimony from my ex-husband, but looking that as like icing on the cake, or trying to create my life in a way where I still get to put some of that away to be able to feel secure, and also to help me to be smarter. I have a little nest egg that I get to invest now, and making smarter decisions about how I'm investing and what I'm investing in. It's been such an eye-opening experience. And there were so many factors that I didn't know about previously that I now I feel like I'm like this financial expert. I say that term loosely, but I feel like I have more control in what my future gets to look like. I feel like I'm in the driver's seat for the first time in my life.
And doesn't that feel good? I feel like there's so little in our control, but the things we can control is what we eat.
Yes.
FYI, I made wonderful chocolate pecan bread last night. I should have controlled myself, but trust me, I did not. But I chose. I was going to have my chocolate pecan bread. But the other thing we control is what we spend our money on. And that gives you a lot of confidence, and it gives you a lot of self-confidence that, you know what, hey, I've got this.
Yeah.
I can control these things. There's a lot of other things I can't control.
Yeah.
And the other piece that is important is trying to get interested in this. And I understand, particularly around investing, some people are just not interested. They're just not interested, and that's okay. But maybe you should think about socially conscious investing. So maybe for you, something that would unlock your excitement about investing in the stock market is investing in companies that really focus on pay parity for women, or companies that will not use any type of child labor. In fact, give money to support those communities. Yeah. Investing in companies that are doing good for our environment and saving our planet. And I have found, talking to women who maybe weren't interested in investing, talking about mutual funds, very easy to invest in, that have some of these screens and these focuses that it lights up. And what's great about socially conscious investing is that you're doing great for your communities, for your world, for the environment. And typically they outperform their non-socially conscious peers. So you're making a huge amount of money too. And so thinking about what's going to make it so that you enjoy this, and that you want to do this, and you want to have that monthly check-in on your accounts, whether that's looking at your investments and 401k, or it's reviewing your spending. But yeah, you definitely want to be doing that.
Yeah. And I talk about this a lot. I have a larger vision for my world and my legacy that I want to leave behind. And you just touched on something really important, which is that the experiences that we go through wake us up to a lot of things. And I say that very broadly because everybody's experience is different. But for me, and I think this is one of the reasons that you and I, are so aligned in our visions, is that for me, I'm looking to change the stigma of divorce from shame to empowerment. And any which way that I can get there, I will. And part of that has been demonstrating the different ways in which women can stand in their power. And for me, the financial aspect was never an area that I felt powerful in until I went through my divorce. And being able to stand in control of my future, to plan for my future, to be, like I said before, to be really in the driver's seat. As we were wrapping up our conversation, is there anything else to leave our audience with today that they should be taking into consideration, that they should be thinking about as they are embarking on this new path that they're on?
I will say that the matrimonial attorney that you choose can also be as important as the financial expert that you choose. You want to make sure that you have a lawyer that understands the finances. And sometimes there is a myth that the lawyer knows best, but many times people go into law because they're actually not comfortable around numbers. It's not always the case, but there is the myth that my lawyer knows best and that my lawyer understands all of the finances. If you're dealing with restricted stock options, performance shares, if you're dealing with variable bonuses, there are a lot of assets that they may not truly understand, let alone the long-term tax impact. So I will say that make sure you have a great lawyer, but also make sure that if they are not a certified divorce financial analyst as well as being a lawyer, which FYI, they're like unicorns, you just can't find them, make sure that you bring in a financial expert. And when you're looking for a financial expert, make sure that they are independent, that they're fee only, and they are fiduciary. And that means that by law, they have to put your interests first. So it could be that they say, you know what, you really can keep the house. You're not going to have a huge amount in your retirement account, but you can afford to do that. Would be a fiduciary that's telling you to keep an asset that they can't make money on. They only get the small brokerage account then to manage for you, and that's how they make money, a percentage of assets under management. A non-fiduciary may say instead, sell the house, let me manage the money, and we'll get you a rental. And the difference is there is that that non-fiduciary does not have an obligation to do what's best for you. They have an obligation to do what's best for the company that they work for to increase profits. So that would be my question again, is choosing the right financial advisor and then choosing the right lawyer, and making sure that they're independent, they're fee only, and also they're fiduciaries.
Yeah, and that's great advice. And I actually just learned something about fiduciary. So that was educational for me as well. Stacy, always a pleasure to speak with you. And I always learn something new every time you and I have a conversation together. I know that you also have some very generous gifts that you'd like to offer to our listeners, which can be found
Yes, I
in the show
do.
notes. So please share those.
Yes, so we put together a beautiful white paper. It's really a book, and the book is easy to read. And essentially interviewed 150 women and asked them, what would you tell your girlfriend that you did right during your divorce? And what did you do that was a mistake? And we wrote this book called Unveiling the Unspoken Truth, the Financial Challenges Women Face During and After Divorce. And it's essentially a how-to guide and amazing experience from women directly about what to do, what not to do, and to make sure that you go through this journey the most whole way possible and the most financially secure possible. So we are going to be giving that to every single person, all of the listeners today. And what I ask you to do is read these women's journeys, because you are probably going to see yourself somewhere on these pages. And I can guarantee that you're going to learn at least 3 to 5 things that are going to make a huge difference to your long-term financial security.
Yeah, thank you so much, Stacey. And I love that you say that, because you always can feel a part of someone else's story, because there is a through line that everybody feels in some capacity, regardless of what your situation is versus somebody else's. The emotions and the impact is the same. So thank you so much. And if people wanted to get a hold of you, to reach out, wanted to get more information, how can people
Yep.
find you?
So you can email me, Stacy, STACY, at francisfinancial.com. And we have free initial consultations where we can line out for you what the issues might be that you need to be aware of, particularly with your finances. And again, hopefully help you step around the puddle versus step through it. You can also visit our website, and that's www.francisfinancial.com. And we also have a great resource. Savvy Ladies is the nonprofit I started in honor of my grandmother, who unfortunately passed away. And we offer 50 different programs throughout the year. And we have the only financial fitness helpline in the country that is free, that I can steer you towards as well. And that website, it's again, 501c3 nonprofit, www.savvyladies.org. A lot of great resources there too.
Yeah, it's a wonderful organization. You guys should all check it out. Stacy, again, thank you from the bottom of my heart for not only the work that you do every single day, but also for being my guest today. I so appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm wishing everybody a big hug, and you can do this.
Absolutely. Everybody can. And everybody listening, thank you so much for joining us today. I always strive to ensure that with every single one of my guests and podcast episodes that you guys are gaining at least one nugget of information that is going to help you navigate your process wherever it is that you guys are. Thank you so much for tuning in and for giving me your time today. I will see you guys in the next episode. Sending you lots of love, light, and joy as always. Mwah. Bye, everybody.